The night of my 29th birthday, between the applause and champagne toasts, his hand came down hard and the entire room went dead silent. The vanilla candles flickered. The tungsten lights caught the red mark blooming across my cheek. 50 guests stared, forks suspended mid-air, as my stepfather straightened his cuff and hissed, "You stole the spotlight." I didn't cry. I stopped being a victim right there. They wanted me silent. Fine. Because every camera was rolling, every phone was recording, and I already had my own script written. The spotlight he accused me of stealing, I was about to show him what taking center stage really meant. My name is Natalie Brooks, and until that night at Riverview & Co., I thought I understood the rules of my family's carefully choreographed performances. Keep quiet. Don't make waves. Let Darren Cole, my mother's husband of 7 years, run the show. The restaurant smelled of rosemary bread and melted butter, mixed with the vanilla candles my mother Lydia had insisted on placing at every table. "More elegant," she'd said, arranging them with trembling fingers while Darren supervised from the bar, his scotch catching the amber light. The tungsten bulbs overhead cast everything in false warmth, the kind that makes people look healthier than they are, happier than they feel. I should have known something was wrong when Darren insisted on organizing this birthday dinner. In 29 years, he'd never once acknowledged the date, except to complain about the expense if my mother tried to mark it. But here we were, 50 guests assembled at Maple Ridge's most upscale venue, and Darren playing the gracious host. "A toast," the MC's voice boomed through the sound system at exactly 8:45 p.m. "To our birthday girl, Natalie." The spotlight swung toward me. Literally, Riverview had installed theater lighting last month, and someone had decided to use it. The beam hit my face like an accusation. I stood, smoothing my dress, the navy fabric suddenly feeling too tight across my ribs. "Thank you all for—" Actually, Darren's voice cut through mine like a serrated knife through cake. He was already standing, his glass raised. That familiar smile stretched across his face, the one he wore at Rotary Club meetings and charity auctions. "I'd like to say something first." The room shifted. Chairs creaked. Ice clinked in glasses as people turned, confused by the interruption. My mother's hand fluttered to her pearls. "This wonderful evening," Darren continued, stepping into my light, "is really about Lydia, my beautiful wife who raised such a spirited daughter." He paused on spirited like it tasted sour. "Let's toast the woman who deserves the real recognition." The spotlight operator, clearly confused, split the beam between us. "Half light, half shadow. Story of my life." "Darren," I said quietly, "it's my birthday dinner." That's when everything shifted. His face went from performed charm to something raw and ugly in the space between heartbeats. The room was too quiet, that kind of silence that happens before thunderstorms, when even the birds stop singing. "You always have to make everything about you, don't you?" His voice dropped low, but the microphone caught it anyway, spreading his words like spilled wine across white linen. "Can't let anyone else have a moment. Always stealing the spotlight." "I'm not stealing anything. It's literally my—" The slap came fast. Not hard enough to knock me down. Darren was too smart for that, but sharp enough to stop words in my throat. The crack of palm against cheek echoed off the high ceiling. Someone gasped. A wine glass hit the floor, shattering into crystalline fragments that caught the light like tears. The red mark bloomed across my face immediately. I could feel it, hot and pulsing, while the rest of my skin went cold. The metallic taste of blood touched my tongue where I'd bitten my cheek. My eyes watered, but I didn't let them fall. Not one drop. Darren straightened his cuff, a gesture so casual it might have been choreographed. "You need to learn respect," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The room erupted in whispers, a wall of sound built from shock and discomfort. My cousin Marcus half rose from his chair. 2 servers froze in the doorway, plates balanced on their arms. The photographer hired by Darren to document his generosity kept shooting. The cameras click, click, click like a countdown to something I couldn't yet name. Jonah Reed, the restaurant manager, approached with his hands raised placatingly. "Perhaps we should—" "It's fine," Darren said, returning to his seat as if nothing had happened. Family moment. These things happen. My mother stood, finally, her voice barely a whisper. "Natalie, honey, let's go to the ladies' room and—" "No." I remained standing, my hand not touching my cheek, not giving him the satisfaction. "I'm fine right here." Around us, relatives began their familiar dance of denial. Aunt Patricia murmured about stress. Uncle Tony suggested more wine. My mother's friend Linda actually said, "Don't make it bigger than it is, dear." But I wasn't looking at them. I was watching the photo booth in the corner, its LED lights flashing steadily. The security camera mounted near the bar, its red light blinking. Maya Ortiz, my best friend, holding her phone steady, recording everything while pretending to text. Darren thought he'd won. He always did. But as I finally sat down, feeling the weight of 50 pairs of eyes, tasting copper in my mouth, I realized something crucial. He'd just made his first mistake. The spotlight he accused me of stealing. He'd just handed it to me, along with all the evidence I'd need. The vanilla candles kept burning, their sweet smoke rising toward the ceiling. Someone clinked silverware against china, trying to restore normalcy. But normal was already dead. It died the moment he raised his hand in public, too arrogant to realize that some performances can't be edited in post-production. The drive home happened in segments. Red light, green light, my mother's sniffling, Darren's knuckles white on the steering wheel. The mark on my face had darkened to purple-red, visible in every reflection windows, mirrors, my phone screen when Maya texted, "Got everything," multiple angles. Our house in Maple Ridge sat on Elm Street like a greeting card, white columns, black shutters. The lawn, Darren paid someone else to keep perfect. Inside, it was a museum of careful surfaces. Every photo on the mantel showed us smiling. You'd never know that behind the camera. Darren's hand often gripped my mother's wrist just hard enough to leave marks that looked like bracelets. "You embarrassed me," he said, pouring himself 3 fingers of bourbon in the kitchen. The ice cracked in the glass like small bones breaking. In front of the entire Rotary Club board, my mother busied herself wiping spotless counters. "Maybe we're all just tired. Don't make excuses for her, Lydia." He turned to me, his eyes flat as pennies. "You've always been ungrateful. After everything I've done, taking you both in, providing this life. Taking us in, like we were stray cats he'd found, not a woman with her own career and savings he'd systematically drained over 7 years. My mother had been a dental hygienist with a solid retirement fund before Darren convinced her to quit. "Why work when I can provide?" he'd said. Now she needed his permission to buy groceries. I went to my room, still my room at 29, because every time I'd tried to leave, something happened. My car mysteriously broke down. My apartment application got lost. My mother had panic attacks that landed her in the ER, chains made of guilt and circumstance, but chains nonetheless. Sitting on my bed, I opened my laptop and created a new folder, Project Spotlight. Inside, I started a spreadsheet. Column A, Assets. Column B, Liabilities. Column C, Actions Required. The first asset was obvious evidence from tonight, but as I sat there, cataloging, I remembered something else. Darren had always been paranoid about photos. "No pictures without me," he'd say. "I don't like how I look alone in frame." He'd delete any solo shots of himself from phones, computers, even the cloud. Except tonight, he couldn't control the restaurant's cameras, or the photo booth, or the dozen phones that had been recording when he thought he was giving a performance. I pulled up our bank statements. I still had access to the joint account my mother had added me to years ago, before Darren. The patterns were clear once you looked. Deposits from the Shoreline Promise Charity Fund he managed as treasurer, withdrawals that matched our household expenses, The charity's new playground equipment that cost $40,000 but looked suspiciously like the $20,000 version. 3 quiet knocks on my door. My mother's code since I was 12. "Come in." She entered carrying ice wrapped in a dish towel, the same one with embroidered roosters she'd had since before Darren. Her face was puffy, mascara smudged despite her efforts to fix it. "For your face," she whispered, even though Darren was downstairs, probably passed out in his recliner by now. "Mom." I took the ice but didn't use it. "How much longer?" "He's not always—" He hit me, in public, in front of everyone. "He's under stress. The charity gala is coming up, and the board's been asking questions about the books." She stopped, realizing what she'd revealed. "What kind of questions?" "Nothing. Forget I said anything." She stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Just don't provoke him. Natalie, you know how he gets." After she left, I sat in the dark, the ice melting in my lap, soaking through the towel. I thought about all the times I'd stayed quiet, all the careful navigation around Darren's moods, the bruises my mother explained away. "I'm so clumsy." She'd laughed to her friends, walked right into the door. But tonight was different. Tonight he'd made it public. Tonight there were witnesses who weren't family, who hadn't spent years perfecting their blindness. Tonight there were cameras that didn't care about keeping the peace. I opened my phone and scrolled through the messages pouring in. Most were variations of, "Are you okay?" But one stood out. From Officer Brooke Hale, whom I'd known since high school. "Saw Maya's video. That's assault. If you want to file a report, I can meet you at the station. Anytime." Anytime. Even at 3:15 a.m. When the house was quiet except for Darren's snoring and the hum of the refrigerator, I looked at the photo booth strip Maya had sent me. 4 frames. In the first, you could see me mid-speech, smiling. The second showed Darren standing, his face twisted. The third captured the exact moment of impact, his hand blurred with motion. My head snapped to the side. The fourth showed the aftermath, my hand not quite touching my cheek, the red mark already visible, and behind me, Darren adjusting his cuff with the practiced ease of a man who'd done this before. But never on camera, never with 50 witnesses, never with a paper trail of financial irregularities that would suddenly become very interesting to investigators if someone, say, an assault victim, decided to point them in the right direction. I opened a new spreadsheet tab labeled Timeline and started typing. 7 years of careful observations. Dates. Incidents. The time he threw a plate that accidentally cut my mother's hand. The weekend she spent in the hospital with a fall down the stairs. The charity fundraiser where the cash donations somehow came up short. But Darren's new boat appeared the next month. If he wanted to talk about stealing spotlights. Fine. I'd show him what it looked like when someone finally turned on all the lights at once. The police station at 4:30 a.m. smelled like burnt coffee and industrial disinfectant. Officer Brooke Hale met me in the lobby, her uniform crisp despite the hour. She'd barely changed since high school, same steady gaze, same way of making you feel heard without saying much. "The marks documented," she said, photographing my face from multiple angles. "Maya's video is clear. Multiple witnesses. This is textbook assault. Natalie. I want to file for a restraining order, too. Smart. Judge Hoffman does TRO hearings at 9. I'll walk you through the paperwork." By dawn, I had a case number and an appointment with Ava Merritt at Northgate and Row. Maya had recommended her. She's a shark in Prada, eats abusers for breakfast and bills them for the privilege. Ava's office occupied the top floor of the riverfront building. She was everything Maya promised: silver hair in a power bob, eyes like surgical instruments, and a handshake that meant business. "Domestic violence with financial abuse components," she said, reviewing my spreadsheets. "The assault gives us immediate leverage. The financial irregularities. That's our nuclear option. Tell me about Shoreline Promise." I laid out what I knew. Darren is treasurer. The playground that cost twice what it should have. The pattern of deposits and withdrawals. The board asking questions. "Beautiful," Ava said, and I believed she meant it. Here's what we're going to do. First, the restraining order keep you safe. Second, we document everything. Third, we wait for him to violate the order, which men like him always do. Fourth, we coordinate with the prosecutor's office about the assault charges. And fifth, she smiled, sharp as winter, we make sure Shoreline Promise gets very interested in their books. Over the next week, I built my case like I'd coordinate an event. Systematic, detailed, no room for error. Maya worked her magic with the digital evidence. She'd been recording at the party even before the slap. You looked tense. She explained, I've been watching Darren for years. She created a synchronized timeline, multiple phone videos, the photo booth images, security footage Jonah quietly provided after I filed the police report. This is art, Maya said, showing me the compiled video. Every angle covered, audio from 3 sources. You can hear him say, stealing the spotlight clear as day. The restraining order was granted within 48 hours. Darren couldn't come within 500 feet of me or my workplace. Of course, that meant I had to find somewhere else to stay. Maya's couch became my temporary headquarters. My mother called crying. How could you? The whole town knows. The Rotary Club is asking questions. The neighbors won't look at me. He hit me, Mom. You could have handled it privately, like a family. Like a family. Like we'd been handling it for 7 years, while the bruises got easier to hide and the bank accounts got emptier. But I wasn't done. I sent a carefully worded email to the Shoreline Promise Board, expressing concern about transparency and requesting public financial records, as was my right as a donor. I'd given $25 last year specifically for this purpose. I copied Ava on everything. Darren, predictably, didn't take it well. The text messages started 3 days after the restraining order. 11:45 p.m. You're destroying your mother. 11:52 p.m. This is all a misunderstanding. 12:03 a.m. You ungrateful bitch. 12:15 a.m. I'm coming to get my things from the house. You can't stop me. Each message was a gift. Screenshots went straight to Ava and Officer Hale. He's violating the no-contact order, Brooke confirmed. We can arrest him now, but Ava's right. Wait for the gala. Maximum impact. The Shoreline Promise Summer Gala, 3 weeks away. The biggest charity event in Maple Ridge, where Darren would stand on stage and accept praise for his community service, where he'd worn his reputation like armor for years. I requested the day off from Harbor Light Pavilion, but my boss Linda surprised me. Actually, Shoreline just called. They want to move the gala here. Something about their original venue having conflicts. You'll be working that night after all. The irony was delicious. Darren's big night would happen on my turf. I met with Jonah to review security protocols. If there's an incident, I said carefully, the main screens can override to security footage. Technically, yes. There's a fail-safe for emergencies. Shows on all 6 LED displays simultaneously. Good to know. For safety purposes. Maya grinned when I told her. It's almost too perfect. We need a trigger, though. Something that makes it clear this isn't random. I thought about that night at Riverview. The words that started everything. When someone says you stole the spotlight, that's our cue. She started programming immediately. Clean, legal, and devastating. The video package will include the assault, the text violations, and if you're sure the financial discrepancies, public records only. Let the board draw their own conclusions. Ava approved every step. You're not doing anything wrong. If someone happens to show evidence of assault and restraining order violations at a public event where the perpetrator chose to appear, despite knowing you work there, that's on him. 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks to make sure that when the spotlight finally found Darren Cole, it would show everyone exactly who he'd been all along. The spreadsheet grew. Evidence mounted. Maya refined the video. Ava prepared civil suit paperwork. Officer Hale kept the criminal case active. Project Spotlight was nearly ready. All we needed was for Darren to walk onto that stage and be himself. The legal machinery moved with satisfying precision. Ava filed the civil suit on a Tuesday at 2:15 p.m., seeking damages for assault, emotional distress, and violation of the restraining order. By Wednesday morning, Darren was served at his office, in front of his secretary and 2 clients. "He called me screaming," Ava said, amused. "Said I'd ruined his reputation. I reminded him that truth is an absolute defense." The financial pressure came next. I discovered Darren had been using my mother's credit cards, the ones she'd added him to as an authorized user for his personal expenses. $1,000 dinners, golf club memberships. That boat I'd suspected he'd bought with charity funds, half paid with my mother's Visa. I sat with my mother in Maya's kitchen, showing her the statements. Her hands shook as she recognized purchases she'd never made. "But he said the cards were for emergencies," she whispered. "Mom, he spent $8,000 at a casino in Atlantic City. Was that an emergency?" We went to the bank that afternoon, closed the joint accounts, removed him as an authorized user, opened new accounts in her name only. The banker, a woman named Patricia who'd processed too many similar requests, handed my mother tissues without being asked. "The house," my mother said suddenly. "The mortgage is overdue. He said he was handling it." Another gift. Ava pounced on this immediately. Delinquent on the mortgage while spending thousands on himself. That's financial abuse, clear cut. We can file for emergency spousal support and exclusive use of the home. Darren's text violations escalated 3:20 a. Your mother is crying because of you. 3:41 a. You don't understand what you're doing. 4:12 a. I know where you're staying. That last one got him arrested. Officer Hale picked him up at 5:30 a.m., pulling him from bed in handcuffs. He made bail by noon, but the damage was done. The arrest report was public record. The Maple Ridge Gazette ran a small item, "Local charity treasurer arrested for restraining order violation." The Shoreline Promise Board called an emergency meeting. I knew because Darren left a voicemail for my mother, not realizing she'd given me her phone for safekeeping. "They're asking about the books. Lydia, your daughter is trying to ruin me. Call off your attack dog or you'll be sorry." Another violation, another police report, another gift. I returned to work at Harbor Light Pavilion, preparing for the gala with professional calm. My bruise had faded to yellow-green, easily covered with concealer. Linda, my boss, pulled me aside. "I heard what happened. If you need to skip the gala." "No, I'm the event coordinator. I'll coordinate." She squeezed my shoulder. "The board specifically requested our best security protocols. They seem nervous about something." I maintained my neutral expression. "I'll make sure everything runs smoothly." With Maya's help, I prepared the technical setup. The LED screens were tested and retested. The fail-safe system was confirmed operational. Everything was legal. We were simply ensuring the venue's emergency broadcast system worked properly. Ava, meanwhile, had filed a preservation order for Darren's financial records related to Shoreline Promise. Just to ensure nothing disappears during the investigation, she explained to the judge, who granted it immediately given Darren's recent arrests. The charity's board was getting nervous. 3 members called me, fishing for information. "We're just concerned about the gala," they said in various ways. "We want to ensure there are no disruptions." "I'm a professional," I assured them. "The event will proceed as planned." What they didn't say, but what I learned from Jonah's cousin who worked at their accounting firm, was that the state attorney general's office had requested their financial records. Someone, possibly a concerned citizen who'd noticed discrepancies, had reported potential fraud. My mother moved back home after Darren was court-ordered to stay away. She wandered the house like a ghost, touching things as if seeing them for the first time. 7 years, she said, standing in the kitchen where he'd controlled every purchase. How did I let it happen? Slowly, I said. That's how it always happens. So slowly you don't notice until you're drowning. She found more evidence. Credit cards she didn't know existed, opened in her name. Withdrawals from her retirement account she'd never authorized. Loans against the house. Darren had been bleeding her dry while playing the generous provider. Each discovery went to Ava, who added it to the civil case. The damages climbed into 6 figures. 5 days before the gala, Darren made a mistake. He showed up at Harbor Light during my shift, technically violating the 500-foot restriction. "I need to check the venue," he told security. "I'm on the gala committee." Security called me, per protocol. I called Officer Hale, per the restraining order. Darren left before she arrived, but the security footage clearly showed him asking for me by name. "He's escalating," Brooke warned. "Men like him don't handle losing control well." The Shoreline Promise Board tried to remove him as treasurer. He refused to resign. They couldn't force him out without a full vote at the gala's business meeting. He planned to attend. Restraining order be damned, betting I wouldn't make a scene at my workplace. He was right about one thing: I wouldn't make a scene. I'd already made a documentary. Maya's final cut was perfect, clean, factual, devastating. The assault from multiple angles, the text violations, the arrest reports, the financial records, all public documents showing suspicious patterns. No accusations, just evidence arranged in chronological order. The truth, spotlit and inescapable. "It's ready," Maya confirmed. "Loaded in the system, just waiting for someone to say the magic words." The gala was in 3 days. Darren's last stand, though he didn't know it yet. "Are you sure?" my mother asked, fear and hope warring in her eyes. "He hit me in public," I said. "He stole from you. He threatened us. Yes, I'm sure." The spotlight he'd accused me of stealing was about to become his worst nightmare, and unlike him, I wouldn't need to raise a hand. The truth would be enough. 2 days before the gala, Darren's desperation showed. He sent an email to my work address, another violation with a subject line that read, "Final warning. Natalie, you've gone too far. The board is asking questions that don't need answers. If you proceed with whatever you're planning, your mother will suffer the consequences. I still have power of attorney over some of her accounts. Think carefully." I forwarded it to Ava within 30 seconds. "Power of attorney." Ava laughed. Actually laughed. "He just confessed to fraud in writing. File the emergency motion now." By that afternoon, a judge had frozen all accounts Darren claimed to control. My mother's financial hemorrhaging stopped cold. The Shoreline Promise Board called me directly this time. Board President Harrison Webb sounded exhausted. "Ms. Brooks, we're aware of complications with our treasurer. We're prepared to make changes, but we need the gala to proceed smoothly. Our beneficiaries depend on this fundraiser." "Of course," I assured him. "I'm a professional. The event will be flawless. And this situation with Darren is a legal matter between him and the courts. I just coordinate events." Harrison paused. "He insists on attending, claims it's his right as treasurer. That's between you and your board, though I should mention our security is aware of the restraining order. They'll act according to legal requirements." The message was clear. Darren shows up. Police get called. Harrison sighed and ended the call. Maya and I did a final technical run-through at Harbor Light. The ballroom was already being decorated white roses and gold ribbons, crystal centerpieces that threw rainbow patterns on the walls, 6 LED screens positioned for maximum visibility, the podium where Darren would stand, thinking himself untouchable. "Audio's perfect," Maya confirmed, testing her hidden control tablet. "I'll be in the tech booth. The trigger phrase activates everything. No turning back once it starts. No turning back." I agreed. That night, my mother found more documents, insurance policies Darren had taken out on her. 3 of them, totaling $2 million. "When did I sign these?" she asked, voice hollow. "You didn't. Look, that's not your signature." Ava had them authenticated by a handwriting expert within hours. Forgery. Insurance fraud. The criminal charges were stacking up like dinner plates at a banquet. The morning of the gala, I dressed carefully. Professional black dress, modest heels, minimal jewelry. Nothing that could be criticized as attention-seeking. My bruise had faded completely, but I had Maya photograph the progression anyway. Evidence of healing, evidence of time past, evidence that I'd followed every legal channel while he'd violated every restriction. At 4 p.m., I arrived at Harbor Light to oversee final preparations. The catering team was setting up. The bar was being stocked. Jonah checked the security cameras one more time. All recording, he confirmed. Every angle covered. At 5:30 p.m., Officer Brooke Hale arrived in plain clothes. Just as a guest, she said, but her badge was in her purse and her partner was in the parking lot. At 6 p.m., guests began arriving. Maple Ridge's elite in their finest clothes, ready to celebrate their own generosity. The mayor, city council members, business owners, and threading through them all, whispers about Darren Cole's recent troubles. At 6:45 p.m., the board arrived. Harrison Webb looked gray with stress. The other members wouldn't meet my eyes. They knew something was coming, but not what. At 7 p.m., my mother entered with Ava at her side. She'd chosen a red dress bold for her, a declaration of independence. Ava had coached her, "Hold your head high. You're the victim here, not him." At 7:15 p.m., Darren arrived. He walked in like he owned the place, despite the restraining order, despite the arrests, despite everything. His tuxedo was impeccable. His smile was practiced. His eyes, when they found me by the registration table, were dead cold. I picked up my phone, visibly, called Officer Hale, loudly. "He's here, in violation of the order." The guests nearby heard. They stepped back. A circle of space opened around Darren like he was contaminated. Harrison Webb intervened quickly. "Mr. Cole, perhaps we should discuss—" "I'm giving my treasurer's report," Darren insisted, voice carrying. "It's my right, my duty to the community." He looked straight at me. "Some people might try to steal the spotlight with dramatic accusations, but I won't be silenced." There it was, almost the trigger phrase. Maya texted me a question mark. I responded, "Wait, he'll say it properly. He always does." Security approached Darren. Brooke's partner entered through the main doors. The tension was electric, champagne flutes trembling in nervous hands. "This is harassment," Darren announced to the room. "I've served this community faithfully for years, and now my ungrateful stepdaughter wants to destroy me. She's always been jealous, always wanted attention, always trying to steal the spotlight. Now," I texted Maya. The LED screens flickered. All 6 simultaneously switched from the Shoreline Promise logo to Maya's video. The first image, the photo booth strip. 4 frames showing the progression from smile to slap. Crystal clear. Undeniable. The audio began Darren's voice from that night, caught on multiple phones. "You always have to make everything about you, don't you? Always stealing the spotlight." Then the sound of the slap, amplified through the ballroom speakers. Several guests gasped. The video continued. Security footage from Riverview & Co. The assault from 3 angles. The timestamp visible. The witnesses visible. My face. The red mark blooming like a poisonous flower. Then the text messages, displayed one by one. "You ungrateful bitch. I know where you're staying. Your mother will suffer the consequences." Each one dated, timed, violating the restraining order repeatedly. Then the arrest report, the booking photo, Darren Cole in handcuffs. Finally, the public financial records, deposits from Shoreline Promise, withdrawals matching personal purchases, the $40,000 playground that looked exactly like the $20,000 model from the manufacturer's catalog. The video ended with a simple message: the truth doesn't need stolen spotlights. It shines on its own. The ballroom was silent. 300 people stared at the screens, then at Darren, then at the screens again. Darren's face had gone from red to purple to white. This is illegal. This is defamation. This is all public record," Ava said, stepping forward. "Every bit of it. Filed with the proper courts. Available to any citizen who requests it." Officer Hale's partner moved in. "Darren Cole, You're under arrest for violation of a restraining order. You have the right to remain silent." The handcuffs clicked shut. The same sound from the video. The spotlight, a real one this time, from the stage, happened to catch them perfectly. Darren Cole, treasurer of Shoreline Promise, being arrested at his own gala. Harrison Webb took the microphone. His voice was steady. "The board will be conducting a full audit immediately. We apologize to our donors and beneficiaries. Transparency is our responsibility." As they led Darren out, he looked at me one last time. No words, just rage and recognition. He'd lost. The spotlight remained on the empty podium for a moment. Then it went dark. The ballroom erupted. 300 voices talking at once. A wall of sound that crashed over everything. Champagne flutes forgotten on tables. Phones out, recording, texting, calling. The Maple Ridge elite had just watched their charity treasurer get arrested on fraud and assault charges, and the scandal was already spreading like wine on white linen. Harrison Webb gripped the microphone like a life preserver. "Ladies and gentlemen, please, the gala will continue. Our beneficiaries still need our support." But the room was already fragmenting. Board members huddled in corners. Donors demanded answers. The mayor slipped out a side door, his press secretary frantically typing on her phone. I stayed at my post by the registration table, professional to the end. Guests approached me in waves. "Did you plan this? How long has this been happening?" "That video, was that really him?" I gave the same response to each. "I'm just here to coordinate the event. Any questions about the video should be directed to the police or the board." But my mother stood tall in her red dress, Ava beside her like an elegant bodyguard. When people approached her with sympathy or questions, she didn't shrink. She didn't apologize. She said, "My daughter is the bravest person I know." Harrison Webb found me 20 minutes later. His face had aged years in minutes. "Ms. Brooks, I need to ask, the financial documents in that video are all public record, filed with the state. Your forensic accountants will find more, I'm sure." He closed his eyes. "How much?" "That's for your auditors to determine." "Will you, that is? Are you planning any action against Shoreline Promise?" Ava materialized at my elbow. "The foundation isn't our target, Mr. Webb, only the individual who defrauded it. Cooperate with the investigation, and we have no quarrel with the charity." Relief flickered across his face. "The board is meeting tonight. Darren will be removed, obviously. We'll cooperate fully with all investigations." As he walked away, I heard him on his phone. "Emergency board meeting. 9 p.m. Yes, tonight." "Bring the forensic team." The gala limped on for another hour. The auction proceeded, though bids were lower than usual. The dinner was served, though many seats sat empty. The band played to a half-deserted dance floor. Maya found me during the dessert course, triumph glowing in her eyes. "The video's already viral. Someone uploaded it to Reddit, titled 'Charity Treasurer Hits Stepdaughter, Gets Arrested at Own Gala.' 15,000 upvotes in an hour." "I didn't upload it," I said. "No, but it's public record now. Fair game." She showed me her phone. The comments were brutal but satisfying. "That slap was caught in 4K. No denying that. The financial fraud is chef's kiss. Man really said you stole the spotlight, then committed crimes on camera." By 10 p.m., the ballroom was nearly empty. The cleaning crew moved in, sweeping up the detritus of Darren's reputation. Broken champagne flutes, abandoned programs with his name as treasurer. The podium where he'd planned to stand and accept applause. Officer Brooke Hale returned as I was packing up the registration materials. "He's in county lockup. Judge denied bail flight risk and pattern of violations. He won't bother you again tonight." "What about tomorrow?" "Arraignments at 9 a.m. Ava's already filed victim impact statements. The prosecutor has everything: assault, restraining order violations, intimidation, insurance fraud, forgery. He's looking at serious time." My mother appeared, coat over her red dress, car keys in hand. For the first time in 7 years, she was driving herself home. "Natalie," she said, and her voice was different, stronger. "I'm sorry for all the times I asked you to keep quiet, for choosing peace over protection, for letting him—" She stopped, composed herself. "You saved us both." We hugged in the empty ballroom, surrounded by wilted centerpieces and the lingering smell of expensive perfume mixed with fear sweat. Jonah approached with a tablet. "Ms. Brooks, I need you to sign off on the security footage. Police took copies, but we keep the originals." I signed, then asked, "How much did the cameras catch?" "Everything, every angle. Even caught him in the parking lot, violating the 500-foot restriction before he even entered. He was recording himself too, on his phone, probably planning to play victim. Instead, he documented his own crimes," Maya added. "Poetic." As we left Harbor Light, my phone buzzed with notifications. Local news had picked up the story. Maple Ridge charity treasurer arrested at gala. The Gazette, Channel 6, the suburban Cleveland papers. By morning, it would be statewide, in the parking lot, under the harsh LED lights that turned everything blue-white and merciless. I saw the remains of Darren's car being towed. He'd parked in a fire lane, one more violation, one more piece of evidence that rules never applied to him. Maya drove me back to her apartment. My mother followed in her own car, a small victory, but victory nonetheless. "You know," Maya said, "when he said you stole the spotlight, he was right in a way. You did steal it. You took his weapon and turned it into yours." I thought about that, about spotlights and stages and who gets to control the narrative. "No," I said finally. "I didn't steal anything. I just turned on the lights. He did the rest himself." We drove through Maple Ridge's quiet streets, past the Presbyterian church where Darren had given charity speeches, past the country club where he'd held court, past all the places where his reputation had been currency. Tomorrow, those same places would be talking about the video, about the arrest, about the fraud. His carefully constructed image was already crumbling, pixel by pixel, frame by frame. My phone rang. Ava. "Preliminary audit results," she said without preamble. 68,000 missing. "And Natalie, 3 other women have called me tonight. Former girlfriends of Darren's. They saw the video. They want to share their stories." The spotlight, it seemed, had illuminated more than just one night's violence. "Tell them I'll listen," I said. "Tell them they're not alone." Because that's what spotlights really do. They don't just show what's there. They show others it's safe to step into the light. The arraignment at 9 a.m. was standing room only. Word had spread through Maple Ridge like wildfire, and Darren Cole's fall from grace had drawn an audience. I sat in the front row between my mother and Ava, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes on my back. Darren entered in an orange jumpsuit, his wrists shackled. No custom suit, no practiced smile. His attorney, a public defender who looked overwhelmed, stood beside him as the judge read the charges. Assault, 3 counts of violating a protective order, harassment, insurance fraud, forgery. Wire fraud related to misappropriation of charitable funds. Judge Hoffman's voice was steady, clinical. "How do you plead not guilty?" Darren said, but his voice cracked on the second word. The prosecutor, ADA Jennifer Martinez, stood. "Your Honor, the state requests remand. The defendant has shown a pattern of escalating violence and repeated violations of court orders. He's a flight risk with access to hidden funds. Alleged hidden funds," the public defender interrupted weakly, "and poses a continued threat to the victims." Ava had submitted our victim impact statements. The judge read them silently, her expression hardening with each page. "Bail is set at $500,000. Cash only. The defendant will surrender his passport and wear an electronic monitor. No contact with the victims, including through third parties. No access to Shoreline Promise funds or facilities." Darren's head snapped up. Your Honor, I need access to the charity's books to prove Mr. Cole." Judge Hoffman cut him off. "Shoreline Promise has terminated your position and filed a civil suit against you for embezzlement. You have no legitimate reason to access their records." As they let him out, Darren looked at me, not with rage this time, but with something worse understanding. He finally knew he'd lost everything. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. I'd prepared a statement with Ava, short and factual. I'm grateful the legal system is working. I hope this encourages other victims to come forward. But the real victory came that afternoon. The forensic accountant's preliminary report was worse than anyone imagined. $83,000 diverted over 5 years, fake vendors, inflated invoices, checks written to cash and deposited into Darren's personal accounts. Harrison Webb called a press conference at 3 p.m. Shoreline Promise takes full responsibility for this breach of trust. We're implementing new oversight measures and will restore every dollar to our beneficiaries. The board had also discovered something else. Darren had been using his position to pressure female grant applicants. Special meetings at hotels, promises of funding in exchange for friendship. 3 women had already come forward. He's done, Ava said simply. Between the criminal charges, the civil suits, and now potential sexual harassment claims, he'll be lucky to avoid 10 years in prison. That evening, I returned to my childhood home for the first time since the birthday dinner. The house felt different without Darren's presence lighter, like someone had opened all the windows after years of staleness. My mother had already started erasing him. His recliner was gone, his scotch collection boxed up, the photos from their wedding removed from the walls, leaving clean rectangles on the faded wallpaper. I'm filing for divorce, she announced, standing in what had been his study. Ava's handling it. Fraud vitiates everything the prenup he made me sign, the power of attorney, all of it. We spent the night sorting through paperwork, finding more evidence of Darren's crimes. Hidden credit cards, forged loan documents, a secret bank account in the Caymans with my mother's maiden name misspelled just enough to avoid detection. How did I not see it? She kept asking. Because he was good at it, because that's what predators do. They make you doubt your own perception. At 11:45 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This isn't over. I showed it to Officer Hale immediately. The number traced back to a burner phone purchased with cash, but the store had security footage. Darren's cousin, acting as a third party in violation of the judge's order. Another charge. Another nail in his coffin. The next morning, Ava filed the civil suit formally. Assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and financial fraud. The damages requested $750,000. We won't get it all, she explained, but we'll get enough. His house, his boat, his cars, all purchased with stolen or fraudulently obtained funds. It'll all be seized. The Gazette ran a feature story with the headline, "The Spotlight Finally Finds Darren Cole." They'd interviewed guests from the gala, charity recipients who'd been shortchanged, and the 3 women who'd come forward about harassment. But the most satisfying moment came that afternoon. I was back at work at Harbor Light, reviewing contracts for upcoming events, when Linda knocked on my door. There's someone here to see you. It was the mother of one of Darren's ex-girlfriends. She held a small box. My daughter dated him 15 years ago, she said. She tried to report him for assault, but no one believed her. She saved everything, though photos, medical records, a recording. She lives in California now, but she wanted you to have this. She said to tell you, thank you for being the one who finally stood up. Inside the box, evidence of a pattern going back decades. Photos of bruises, hospital records, a cassette tape of Darren threatening to kill her if she talked. I gave it all to ADA Martinez, who added additional charges for past crimes still within the statute of limitations. That evening, as I sat with Maya reviewing the flood of supportive messages online, she asked, "How do you feel?" I thought about it. Not happy, not sad, just finished. Like I've completed a project? Project Spotlight, she said, raising her coffee mug in a mock toast. The spotlight was never really mine to steal, I said. It was always his. I just made sure everyone could see what it was illuminating. The truth, as it turned out. didn't need embellishment. It just needed an audience willing to look. The parking lot outside Harbor Light Pavilion was nearly empty at 8 p.m. The last event of the week had wrapped up, and I was finishing my reports when Ava called. Darren took the plea deal. 8 years, minimum 5 before parole. Full restitution to Shoreline Promise and your mother. Lifetime restraining order. He'll be registered as a financial predator. I set down my pen. It's done. It's done. Sentencing is tomorrow, but it's just a formality. He admitted guilt to avoid trial and potentially 15 years. Through my office window, I watched the lake beyond the pavilion, its surface black glass reflecting the security lights. Somewhere across town, Darren was spending his last night of limited freedom. Tomorrow, he'd be processed into state prison. My mother was already at the house when I arrived our house now. The deed transferred solely to her name as part of the fraud settlement. She'd painted the walls. New color over old stains. She was in the kitchen, cooking dinner for the first time in years without asking permission about the menu or the cost. Ava called, she said. 8 years? Enough, she considered while stirring pasta. No amount of time erases what happened, but it's enough to rebuild. We ate in comfortable silence. No more walking on eggshells. No more scanning for mood shifts. Just the clink of forks on plates and the hum of the refrigerator. After dinner, I went through the last box of evidence, preparing to hand everything over to Ava for storage. The photo booth strips, the police reports, the USB drive labeled Project Spotlight that had started everything. At the bottom, I found something I'd forgotten, a birthday card from that night at Riverview. It had been on the gift table, probably written before the slap. Darren's handwriting, happy birthday. Remember, success means knowing your place. I almost laughed. He'd been so concerned about everyone knowing their place. Now he knew his cell block C, the Marion Correctional Institution. My phone lit up with messages, the victim support group Ava had connected me with, other women who'd survived similar situations, checking in. The network that had formed in the wake of the publicity was unexpected but welcome. You gave us permission to fight back. One message read, seeing you stand there while he got arrested, it changed everything for me. Maya arrived at 10 p.m. with champagne. Not to celebrate, she clarified. To mark the end. We sat on the porch, watching suburban Maple Ridge sleep, the same street where Darren had played respectable citizen, where neighbors had ignored the signs, where my mother's cries had been muffled by reputation and politeness. What now? Maya asked. Now I live, I said, without checking doors, without memorizing exits, without documenting everything just in case. The next morning, I didn't attend the sentencing. Neither did my mother. Ava went to represent us, texting updates 10:15 He's trying to make a statement about being victimized. 10:20 a.m. Judge shut him down, reading victim impacts instead. 10:45 a.m. Official 8 years, immediate custody. It's over. I was reviewing vendor contracts when the news came through. I filed it away like any other piece of information. Project Spotlight complete. That weekend, Shoreline Promise held a smaller fundraiser to make up for the gala's shortfall. They raised more than ever, the community rallying around a transparency and redemption. Harrison Webb personally apologized to my mother and me, though we'd asked for nothing from the charity. 3 months later, the checks arrived, restitution from Darren's seized assets, my mother's stolen money returned, my damages for assault and suffering, not enough to erase the past, but enough to secure the future. My mother enrolled in college to finish the degree she'd abandoned when she met Darren. I kept working at Harbor Light, coordinating events with the same precision I'd used to coordinate his downfall. Sometimes, guests at events would recognize me. "You're the woman from the video." I'd nod, keep working. The spotlight had served its purpose, but I didn't need to live in it. 1 year later, on my 30th birthday, we held a small dinner at home. No grand venue, no spotlight, just friends, including the 3 women who'd come forward about Darren. We'd become a strange sort of family, bonded by survival. Maya raised a toast to taking back the narrative. To truth under lights, I countered. As everyone clinked glasses, my mother added quietly, to the courage to flip the switch. Later, standing in the kitchen where Darren had once controlled every purchase, every meal, every moment, I opened the drawer where I'd kept the evidence. It was empty now except for a single photo me. The morning after filing charges, bruise faded but visible, standing in front of the police station. Not a victim's photo, a survivor's. I closed the drawer. Darren had been right about one thing: I had stolen the spotlight. But it had never been his to own. It belonged to the truth, waiting in the darkness for someone brave enough to turn it on. The house was quiet, peaceful, ours. Somewhere in Marion, Darren Cole sat in a cell, his reputation in ruins, his crimes exposed. 8 years to think about the night he raised his hand and thought he'd won. He'd blamed me for stealing the spotlight. In the end, all I'd done was show everyone where it had been pointing all along. The spotlight never lies. It simply illuminates what's already there, waiting in the darkness for someone to finally see. Project Spotlight wasn't about revenge. It was about revelation. And the truth, once illuminated, can never be hidden again. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your support means everything. And remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't about fighting back. It's about turning on the lights.